Good morning, everyone. Well, here from Western Europe anyway. And we'd like to welcome you to this continuing work with Glamour, a World Problem. We're continuing more or less with the same glamour. It has a lot of words in it, but basically it's the glamour of the emphasis upon the dweller on the threshold. It's the glamour of the personality emphasis, regardless of what that may mean uh, for the welfare of any nation or the individual or humanity. It's a type of blindness, and that's why we're calling it blind, violent, emotional reaction to demagoguery, to manipulative, conspiratorial demagoguery, such as we have witnessed during the last 4 or 5 years and continue to witness. The people in power who want to preserve their prerogatives are taking advantage of those who are susceptible to their conspiratorial thinking. And the susceptible people react blindly, as we have seen, excuse me, violently, and obviously emotionally. So that's our issue. But before we do that, we're going to review the stages we have passed through so far in discussing the technique of the presence from a scientific point of view. The world intuitives, sorry, the world intuitives have to be trained in a certain type of scientific thinking, he supposes. And he tells us that this technique involves the ability, or presupposes the facility in approach to the angel of the presence, or the soul, and an ability to raise the consciousness to a point of soul fusion. Well, that has to be practiced. And we, I think, especially want to read from intellect to intuition in those sections regarding meditation, and also especially contemplation, because contemplation allows you to enter the soul state. I do want to welcome you here, those that are, not so many from the United States, of course, at this time, but okay. Vera and my co-host Tuija with me, and Martha, Annette, Catherine, Frederick, Leslie, Lynette, Mariana, Miro, Shriyantra, and Vicky, Zenaidi. Yes, welcome all of you. Mostly, now in Australia and New Zealand, and Frederick in Japan, and off to the east, because those are reasonable times. And I see only Leslie from the United States. But whenever these programs occur in such a way that you cannot take them in, you can come to them later because our colleague BL will put them on Makara. And you'll be able to see what we've been doing. Basically, we are going through the entire Glamour book. And that seems to be a good way to operate. There are other books that it would be good to go through together. Now, Glamour is a relatively short book, and yet it's taking quite a long time to, to work through it. So the question is, with the other books, how long would it take? One just has to stay with it if possible. Now, just a little bit of a review about this process in the technique of illusion. Very first stage, the evocation of the stage of tension. So you are fit for contact with the real. Point 2, the achieving of a state of fusion with the soul or with the angel. That part of the angel, solar angel, which guards the higher path until we are ready to enter into the light and power and love of the monad. So point 2, the achieving of a state of fusion with the soul. And of course, this is easier said than done. We students of DK, we can be pretty glib regarding those words. But do they mean anything real to us? That is the question. Point 3, the holding of the mind steady in the light of the soul. And the soul itself has a independent agency. The soul on its own plane contributes to the helping of this holding of the mind steady in the light of the soul. We oftentimes say, well, let us focus so that our thought, the mind, is held steady in the light of the soul. We can do, as personalities, so much. But then we have to have the faith and confidence, and apparently here it is justified, that the soul itself gets into the act and helps to hold that steadiness. The soul undertakes this holding when the personal self, that is, the soul in incarnation, which we normally think we are, has done its utmost to achieve the desired tension. So, these are steps which are preceding the development of intuition, and we do need the intuition to enter into this technique of the presence. Then he goes on, 6 more stages. Allowing us to live both that internal life of intense and simultaneous spiritual reflection and of mundane activity. Again, no easy matter to live the dual life of the disciple. But the Western disciples, such as many of us are anyway, and even if we're in the East, we oftentimes have developed that Western mentality. This is something we are called upon to do. And we go on. Point 4, having achieved the first 3 points, definite and sustained effort to sense the presence throughout the universe in all forms and in all presentations of truth. Now, when we have had our identification or identify as being work, such as we had last night here anyway, we're doing that all the time, and we're going, I'm sorry, morning throat, we're going even farther, and we are naming ourselves as that presence. But, we just begin by saying, what is this unusual factor that understands, and seems to underlie all things? It is the presence. It's like the old Jesuit technique of practicing the presence of God. They had a lot of spiritual disciplines, and whatever their dogmas were, they knew certain things and still do. So, this has to be reread. It's a rather lengthy section here. Now, point 5, then having sensed the presence, not theoretically, and this is the point, because it's so easy to just talk the words without an accompanying experience, that having sensed the presence, not theoretically, but in vibrating response to its existence, there next comes the stage of the ascertaining of the purpose, as far ahead as that may be for us. So this purpose on the way of higher evolution, gradually to the high initiate, it will be revealed. And at the 5th initiation, at least these days, we will begin that earnest study of the way or the path upon the way of higher evolution that we will take. But we have to even begin to sense something of the purpose and where we fit within that purpose. Then point 6, he's carrying some world problem, some design which his mind has evolved or his heart desired for the helping of humanity in what is called the triple light of the intuition. And this light is formed by blending the light of the personal self. You can see why we have to review this, right? The focused in the mind, the light of the soul, focused in the angel, and beginning to sense that universal light which the presence emits. Now, last night we began to use certain great phrases like, I am the light of the world. I am the love of the world. I am the divine will of the world. And I am the beingness of all things. Admittedly, huge sentences with huge implications. But at least we began. Now, what happens? An answer to the problem comes and brings the possibility of release to many people. Thank you, Tuija. Tuija, sensing my morning throat here, kindly brought me something, some tea. So that happens. And then we become what's called an intruding agent of light. We're intruding upon areas that we normally don't go into. And maybe we will be entrusted to have some revelation vouched safe to us so we can give it to the race of human beings and help humanity a little bit further along the way. Now, this is today's work. And the 174th program, reading 111. You know, I rely upon my cooperators in the group presentation to tell me when my numbers are off, but it doesn't make so much difference right now. We come to point 7 in the scientific series of developing this high technique of the presence. Now, remember, when we are dissipating glamour, we're pretty much using the technique of light, that beam from the forehead involving the heart and the solar plexus and ajna, heart, solar plexus, in attacking and weakening the normal glamours, which are really rampant today and which are fed by these powers of darkness that want to see human progress fail or be delayed, you know, and the battle is not won yet. So the next few stages are called, in preparation for the revelation, because if we are an intruding agent, we are learning how to be a true intuitive, and something from the higher worlds is coming through to us beyond our normal thoughtful cogitations. Something is impressing us with straight knowledge, as they say. As Master Moria says, straight knowledge. And the Tibetan calls it pure reason. So the next few stages are called the relinquishing of the higher way. Well, it takes a while before we're even in that position where maybe sacrificially we can do as Sanat Kumara has done, becoming the great sacrifice in our own little sphere, not leaving our post. I mean, obviously, he, this great being, could have gone on the higher way, but instead, like the masters on earth service, path of earth service, for whom he sets a great example, they simply hold their post and they relinquish the possibility of moving on before the last weary pilgrim has found his way home. You're familiar with that idea and what it means for Sanat Kumara as the great sacrifice. So the next stage is the relinquishing of the higher way, the return to the angel, or a refocusing in the soul. We'll take up what DK has meant by that, because obviously if we're returning to the higher angel, we're returning from above in the presence of the presence. So we just don't follow the way of the monadic presence. we return to the angel, which stands at the midway point and which has in its consciousness that which is above and humanity's development below. But of course, in the beginning, we have to have the ability to approach the angel and fuse with the angel. And not all of us have that. And that's something that really has to be cultivated. And then there's a pause or interlude for, notice the practicality of this, for constructive thinking under the influence of the angel. Now, when we think in our service and prepare through thought what our service can be, and maybe even serve through thinking, are we under the influence of the angel? That is the question. You know, even as I'm talking to you right here, I'm asking myself, are the words that I am saying at the present moment under the influence of the angel, or are they not? And it's not, you know, just an automatic yes. Maybe yes, maybe no, it depends. And then, excuse me, the turning of the mind, this gets quite concrete, to the formulation of those forms of thought which must embody revelation. Now, look, you know, it's hard enough for us to enter into what the Tibetan has said here. And we struggle to understand. We're not going to immediately take to those thousands and millions of people the immediate quotes from Master DK, except where they can really do some good. Master DK tells us that it'll be a long time before the average person, the average good person, you know, can entertain seriously occultism, be ready for occultism. And I always specify spiritual occultism to keep it away from that low form of magic, which is usually wrongly associated with the occult. So those thoughts that we formulate under the impression and influence of the angel have to be appropriate to the people to whom we speak. So as Master Mori is telling us, always measure the consciousness of your interlocutor. If you're talking to somebody, have the sensitivity to know what such an individual can take and maybe assimilate, or what might put them off, and have them reject the light that you are trying to bring. Then again, a pause, which is called the pause preceding presentation. This kind of reminds us of the higher interlude, you know. You're in the higher interlude, but you, in the meditative process, but you pause there, and then you descend, and then you are ready to offer, and that will be a lower pause, an impression, just to make sure that what you're giving out is exactly what you intend to give out. You see, people like ourselves are part of a great educational enterprise, a great spiritual propagation of ideas. It almost doesn't make any difference what ray we're on, but so many of us have a lot of the, you know, second ray, and sixth ray and fourth ray, pretty much on the 2, 4, 6 line, and some people the fifth ray and so forth. We're generally not the political or scientific workers. We may have an interest, and we have a duty to present to whomever we can some impression of what has been gathered, truly gathered, in the higher worlds. So do we take that obligation for presentation seriously? And I would advise all of us to somehow try to find a way to do that, you know, because we don't want what the Tibetan has written to be the best kept secret on the planet, you know. It, if all kinds of erroneous teachings are being, as it were, in the old biblical phrase, shouted from the rooftops, we certainly want to be present in presenting the real thing. So now comes this next part, which is point 8, the presentation of the revelation, or of the imparted truth, imparted from on high, and its precipitation into the world of illusion comes next. This, of course, can be an unpleasant experience. Master Moria says, I don't know which is harder on the disciple, you know. Is it to be put to the stake for the truth being presented? Or is it, in fact, seeing what happens to the good idea once illusion gets a hold of it? Both are equally, he seems to suggest, equally unpleasant. So he says some truths have to be nourished by the stake, and others descend into the world of illusion and are terribly distorted. But, you know, if you pay attention, you can hear ideas coming through that long ago the spiritual students were using, but only recently more people in the world are using. Even the word karma, obviously an Eastern word involved with cause and effect, is being much pronounced, much used in common language among commentators and so forth. There are other words too, other ideas that are coming through. You know, sometimes in slang, the people say, hey, what goes around comes around. So if you send it out, it's going to be a boomerang. It's going to come right back to you. That's an idea of karma too. And they say, you know, well, the chickens come home to roosts. Same idea. It comes back to you. What you give out returns to you. So that particular concept is making its way into the more public mind. And there are others. I can't think of them right now, but I've noticed them along the way. I say, hey, this is from the wisdom, and it has precipitated now into the level of normal, intelligent discourse. So now comes that, after that pause, point E above there, comes the presentation or the revelation of the revelation into the world of illusion. In that world of illusion, it undergoes the fiery ordeal, wherein some of the fire within that which is revealed wings its way back to the source from whence it came. And some of it, this is so interesting, serves to destroy the revealer, and some to burn those who recognize the revelation. It's all part of a fiery, burning ground process. I mean, things are in those higher points of tension. Things are hot, and when the precipitation touches those in the world of illusion, including the revealer, then there is a triple effect. This is interesting. So just reviewing that, some of the precipitated truth, the imparted truth, it undergoes, well, all of it undergoes a fiery ordeal. One thinks of Leo and the sun and the great shining and the fiery pain that we find in Leo. So it's just not simple, well, I'm just going to tell you. No. Some of it goes back to where it came from because you just can't impart it. Some of it burns away that which is in the revealer. It's kind of interesting, destroy, but at least destroy some of the conditioning of the revealer. When you start living your life according to these higher truths, there are aspects of your customary nature which are destroyed, and some to do something similar of a destructive nature to those who recognize the revelation. In other words, in the face of the imparted truth, their normal and our normal, inadequate conditioning does not stand. Now, DK does engage in Agni Yoga, but from a second-ray perspective, and Master Morya more from a first-ray perspective. So he tells us that he's been responsible for trying to impart some of the yoga of synthesis, the Agni Yoga, to humanity along the second-ray line. So this is a phase of Agni Yoga which, as you can see, is only for those who can penetrate beyond the angel. Now, note this, into the place where fire dwelleth. How God is a consuming fire, right? And where God the presence, functions as a consuming fire and waits for the hour when the form is ready of total revelation. And this is a symbolic rendering of a great truth. So you can tell that we're dealing with very high exchanges here, exchanges of energy, very high. And you can tell why this book was not fully assimilated by those to whom it was presented in the 1930s, largely. Think of it, 90 years ago, or 85. Okay, so this is a symbolic rendering of a great truth. In the case of the individual initiate, the third initiation, the transfiguration, marks the consummation of the process. Only glory then is seen. Only the voice of the presence is heard. I mean, the Christ brought his 3 disciples into the desert to be transfigured before them, to demonstrate the transfiguration so they would have some idea of what that glorification really was. Only the voice of the presence is heard, and union with the past, the present, and the future is reached in the eternal now. I'll call it that. Because whenever you talk about uniting past, present, and future, the idea of the eternal now is very much present. So, this is material when we talk about the technique of the presence, which bends us, impels us, drives us towards the third initiation. Now, we're not there yet by a long shot. Most of us are having to, just like DK students around him, the majority could think, at least, in terms of the second initiation, even though in that particular incarnation, they were not necessarily taking that initiation at all, even though they were accepted disciples. Now, we do remember how fast progress can be. Page 84 and 85 of Initiation, Human and Solar, once you take the second initiation. So it's a high point of really entering the stream. Well, I think, we'll try to go on a little bit more here. Perhaps there is a bit more, and maybe not the whole thing. The succumbing, this is point 9. See, we have to, we think about revelation. Okay, we're an intuitive. We have received something. We have been deemed worthy to receive something of value for the human race. It's not just, well, let me tell you about it. There's a whole process going on here, which is even a painful process physically and psychologically. I mean, there's so many people who have touched heights, and when they bring their revelation, the world punishes them for that because it challenges the comfortable or comforting conditioning in which the normal consciousness lives. So, they distort it, or they burn you at the stake, or, that kind of thing. You are rejected. You are rejected for your revelation. And basically, if we look at the greatest example in modern times, we find that the Christ was rejected for his revelation of love. Now you would say, well, how in the world, with the presented attribute, we call it that, of love, would the world reject the Christ? But instead, I was thinking about that movie with Anthony Quinn. I think it was called Barabbas or something like that. Don't give us Jesus, give us Barabbas, said the crowd. Every year, one person could be saved from crucifixion. Give us Barabbas and crucify the revealer of love. So if you're going to be a revealer, and John the Baptist was such a revealer, you have to get ready for rejection. Finally, at least from some, okay. Finally, at the fourth initiation, says the Tibetan, and it's a peculiar idea, humanity casts the initiate away. Humanity throws the initiate out and banishes the initiate from the councils of men, the councils of human beings. And that experience of ejection, like an ejection seat, out of the airplane, that experience of ejection accompanies the fourth degree ejection from the human kingdom into the kingdom of souls, very fully and solidly. And I guess it's something that we all have to live through. So the succumbing, point 9, in this scientific treatment of the sequences of the technique of the presence, the succumbing of the revelation to the prevailing illusion, its descent into the world of glamour, and its subsequent disappearance as a revelation, and its emergence as a doctrine. Now, Orthodox Christianity, Orthodox Islam, maybe even Orthodox Buddhism, he said, it would become more and more dogmatic as time passed, is all part of this doctrinization of the revelation. And then you can hardly recognize it anymore. It just becomes a crustified thing. And people adhere to it and they believe it, but they don't have the experience of the living, intuitive revelation. Still, I suppose it forms a kind of a guidance for many people, which they need to hang on to, but it's not the real thing. So we have to help more and more people, including ourselves, experience the real thing. So the succumbing of the revelation to the prevailing illusion, to the way we usually interpret things, and the kind of distortions, the big becoming the little becoming the big, That's what distortion is. It's not a sense of beautiful proportion. It's exaggeration and minimization. So distortion and the subsequent disappearance as a true revelation and its emergence into a doctrine. And the faithful repeat the doctrine without really knowing the livingness of what they are repeating. Maybe some make the bridge. But, okay, something has happened. In the meantime, humanity has been helped and led forward. The intuitives continue to work, and the inflow of that which is to be revealed never ceases, From the world of ideas, the downflow continues, and we know the old saying, nothing is more powerful than an idea whose time has come. So I think that's as far as I'm going to take it right now. There's a bit of a summary that goes on here. And we'll make the segue next time into group intuition. And if we know what it is for the individual and in the dispelling of illusion, then maybe we'll be able to transform that understanding into the larger group idea. So we're on page 183 basically here. And we're on page 183. And we've gone this far with our review. And we'll take it next time a little farther. And you can understand how very valuable this material is in understanding what we need to become intuitives. First, we have to learn to use the abstract mind, and then we have to become the true intuitive, neither one of which we have yet accomplished. So this is, just basically one page worth. And next time, program 175. And I just am making a guess here that it's on the 26th. And I don't know if I'm correct, but you'll get your weekly programs, and there's a monthly program I think that's on Makara to orient you properly. Sometimes I've found that you have to, if you're using Gmail, you have to press all mail for all of this to come through. Otherwise, it may not come through from constant contact. So, friends, good. Now, are there any thoughts that have occurred to you regarding this material that you would like to offer? I don't know, maybe if there is any thought there to you, maybe you could give me a hand on that. Is that possible? Are you there?
Yes, I tried to do that.
Okay. Right. So are there any things you might like to say about any of this? I'm still looking for, I'm looking at chat. It's very empty right now. And, but you can speak if you wish, or you can write, or you can bring up something in the field of occultism, since everything leads to everything else. We'll find a way to relate it always to what we're doing. Every point on the sphere of knowledge relates to every other point. And, I keep on emphasizing that in my estimation, the Tibetan has written one big book for us, and we can get from any place to any place if we think along the lines of Mercurian light. So, anything. Anything that you would like to deal with. A few more have joined us. Stacia, Meire, and Tia, and appreciate your presence. But maybe there's nothing this morning. Just ponder these things And as I'm doing the instruction in the beginning, when something strikes you as interesting or something you'd like to carry a little further, then, make a note of it so that you are interactive in your study with me. Now we've had 9 different points in the scientific method of pursuing the technique of the presence, and it involves some pretty high entry on our part into areas of consciousness that normally we may not enter. I mean, how can you tell, friends, when you have entered the sphere of the soul? And then how would you distinguish that from entering the sphere of the Buddhic plane and the intuitions of the Buddhic plane? Sometimes there are, physical cues. The Tibetan sometimes talks about a certain ripple that one feels in the head when one is attuned with the thought of the master, which will take the individual into the soul realm. I would say there's there can be a heart vibration. There can be a realization, in the words of the English poet Wordsworth, of something far more deeply interfused. Think of those words. You become aware of something far more deeply interfused. It's everywhere. It's going through everything. And you're becoming aware of it. And also your sense of non-limitation is growing because in a way you are focused within the field of your own virtues, which over many lives have been stored in the causal body, and it's a altogether different, uplifting kind of experience than the normal personal experience, which he tells us, that poor old tired personality, that lonely, darkened figure, having experienced so much of a limited nature over time. No, this is different. You're in the field of your own self as a virtuous being filled with virtues and strengths. Vir, vir, it means power, vibration, virility, strength. You're filled with that. That's one of the ways to know that you penetrated. And another way is that things don't look so different. In the normal consciousness, this is this, that is that. I am here, you are there. I am here, that is there. No, there's some kind of fusion, unification that is going on, and everything begins to take on a more familiar look. Now, frankly, I sometimes joke, well, we've all known each other forever. But taking it further, we've all been each other forever. And those are peculiar thoughts, but I think probably very true. Okay, so now, Tuija, it looks like
Michael,
we
yes,
have something.
yes, we have Anna, who has said, dissipation of glamour is the path within to the heart center in the head.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that if the heart center between the shoulder blades is particularly connected with the Buddhic plane, the heart center within the head is connected very much with the monadic plane and with the presence. So first, a clear mind, and then a convincing intuition, and then monadic awareness of the heart center within the head. So that is the progress. And of course, we
So
need
then,
discriminations. Yeah, go
spoken.
ahead, Tuija. Go ahead. Yeah.
So this is coming from Marianne. Dear Michael, can you please talk to me more about, can you please talk to me about the 10 portals? Good morning, everybody. Marianne.
Wait, Tuija, hold on. Oh, I see what's going on. 10 portals. Well, usually these are considered to be chakric vortices. And I have an old kind of rule of thumb that I go by, that wherever there's a 7, there's a 10. And basically, I used a Kabbalistic formulation that there are 7 of these normal Sephiroth positioned below the higher trinity of Kether, Chokhmah, and Bina. So it's just a question of how we count chakras. And maybe it also has to do with different parts of the body, 5 and 5. There are different ways to interpret this perfect number, 10, more perfect than the 12. But 10 and 12 together make the master number 22. So, when we're looking at the chakra system within the etheric body, we're going to find 10 major vortices, when we usually consider that there are only 7. Other than that, a word like portal is a big symbolic word. Does it mean initiations? Because usually, when you activate various chakras, initiation becomes possible. And there are 9 initiations for humanity, and the upper 3 are very rare, 7, 8, 9. And then when a higher system of initiations takes over, are we going through the 10th portal into this new system? Because 10 is 1. You know what I mean? You look at 1, 0, basically, it's a 1. And so we're starting all over again with the 10. But I would just say it has to do with how we count chakras, how we count the vortexes. And basically, we have to activate every one of those chakras on the etheric plane, on the astral plane, eventually on the mental plane, and even beyond. So that number 10 is to be considered in a number of ever rising contexts. And right now we're focusing etherically largely.
Michael, can I add to that something?
Please.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about these so-called portals, because they are like the points that you can go in or out. And when we are talking about these 12 portals, So then we are talking, because 12 is related to the Deva kingdom, which is related then to the form building. So I'm thinking about that this 12 is still into towards manifestation. And when we start to talk about the 10, which is related to Capricorn, we are talking also about that how we are moving out from the outer expression and moving towards the soul expression within. And then when we moved it to that direction, so then we are in our I'm sorry, the dogs are barking. So then we are like leaving behind our purpose to be into a manifestation. And now when we also think about that movement in astrology, that in some point there is going to be again these 10 main streams of energy. And I think it is of relating to that inner life, that we need 12 still here, but then when we are either moved out already from the earth expression or down to here, we
Yeah.
have moved into the soul kingdom of souls.
He talks about a higher zodiac beyond the zodiac of 12, and he calls it a zodiac of 10. And I think it has a lot to do with certain constellations that are chakras in the one about whom naught may be said. But basically, what we do need to do eventually is achieve the mystic number 22, which comes from the combination of the 10 and the 12. And what's interesting right now is it really applies to our solar system. Why? Because we always have a second ray soul in our solar system, and the personality ray of our solar system right now is also the second ray. So we've got that 22 right there in the soul and personality of our solar system, and we have the need to combine the human, more related to the 10, and the Devic, more related to the 12. And that's going to give us that kind of combination of the two, which is considered desirable at this time of evolution. So, it's a question that has a lot of deep implications, really. But 10, for some reason, is considered higher than 12. And eventually we return to the 10, as you said. Okay.
Okay, so then Anna continues. Men and women who are building the Antakarana, whether consciously or unconsciously, and in so doing are contributing to its collective construction.
Yeah.
They function as catalysts within this body of humanity, and because they are becoming increasingly soul infused, they provide the energetic stimulus for other people as well as other life forms to awaken more fully to the truth of the soul.
Yes, we would have to say that all of that is accurate. And the thing about building the Antakarana, of course, is that you're right about there being some kind of unconscious upreaching that even happened in the method by which individualization occurred on the moon chain and in the previous solar system. All of that was a very preliminary stage of Antakarana building. But now we're given like 100 pages of very uh, concentrated information in the rays and the initiations about how to build the Antakarana in a conscious manner. And it's up to us to apply these instructions to ourselves, and it takes, I would say, a long time, and to find a way to impart the idea of bridging to the average intelligent person. And he says increasingly, the fourth C group of the educators will be involved in this building of the Antakarana, and the chakras which they use are the head, oh gosh, can I remember? Uh, the head center, the ajna, and the throat, I believe. I think it's on page 40 or 41, somewhere right there in Discipleship in the New Age. But that group is specifically responsible for bringing the concept of bridging to humanity. And whenever we're talking about bridging, even if it's in a kind of preliminary sense, we are talking about conscious Antakarana building. And then one day, these same people will be ready for DK's detailed instructions about how to build the Antakarana. So bridging is always going on, and we hope that it will be ever more consciously undertaken.
Okay, Michael, by the way, give me permission to share my screen.
Yeah, oh, please.
Okay, and then Meire continues, I've been meditating so much on the topic of faith. How can we know what's really light or illusions and Maya? It's so difficult to trust. How to overcome skepticism in a world full of deception? Thank you so much for the gift of these studies.
Well, trust. Funny, I was just thinking about that yesterday from Agni Yoga, about Master Moria speaking of the interesting, interesting turn of phrase, the mine, like you go digging in a mine and find valuable, whatever, metals, whatever. The mine of trust, he calls it. And when we have the courage to trust rather than be suspicious, we close one of the doors of glamour. We will be informed whether our trust has been justified or not, and we can either continue in the trust or we can reject the source from which we thought trust would come, or which we thought was trustworthy. We just have to be willing. The fifth ray of humanity is skeptical, but at the same time, it can block access, if used incorrectly, to the treasures that can be found above. So we just have to take a risk. And moreover, confirmations begin to occur within the energy system that tell us, aha, I'm on the beam. It may be, like DK says, that a ripple will occur in the head. It means that you have aligned with the master, or some other heart or ajna vibration, some vibration. And then you know that you were right to place your trust in this source. Also, you can use the reasoning power. If the reasoning is sharp, you can say, well, look, all of this, use the mind, all of this is logical. It is reasonable. It does seem to stand together. And you can use that as a platform from which to enter into a higher faith. I think it was the Danish theologian Kierkegaard that talked about the leap of faith. I think that leap of faith is necessary on the path of occultism. but it can be based first upon logic and reason and what we call an educated anticipation of the truth. You know, there's an old story about a master and a possible student, and so the student comes to the master and says, "Okay, master, show me a miracle, and then I will become your student. I will believe." So the master shows him a miracle. And then the student says, "Ah, thank you so much. I am now ready to become your student because of this miracle I believe." And the master says, "I'm sorry, now I don't need you anymore." Meaning, meaning that if we only will believe because we see worked out exactly in front of us, that we're not really penetrating into faith is the substance not seen, or the evidence of things not seen. We need that faith to make the bridge on our own and the substance of things hoped for. And DK actually says even more esoterically, light is the evidence of things not seen and the substance of things hoped for. So faith, it allows you to recognize the unknown by similarity of vibration that occurs within your consciousness. And it is necessary, and it does demand a risk, and you just have to be willing to be fooled. And eventually, you know, you discover what is real and what is not.
Michael, I would like to add there.
Yeah.
DK talks about one of the disciples is to learn to read energies, and that is about related to that trust. It's a horrible thing at the moment. It is going around the whole world, and from that we see that there is the forces of darkness involved, because they are throwing these clamors of confusion everywhere. And then we lose the trust, because our minds are so developed that we can find all kinds of things to turn this around, that there might be this, or what about it is that. It is endless that way. So we always have to turn then to the vertical line. For me, I have been somehow trying to develop that, and it has been taking years and years. I remember 30 years at least I have been trying to find exactly this question: what is true? What is the truth here? Can I trust this? And so forth. So to distinguish, and it is always personal thing, what is the vibration of the Christ? Center, whatever that kind of thing you can find within you, align with that always, and compare with that, against that, the what is the vibration behind, because sometimes our human logic can reason very well what is to be trusted, but still it is from the clamor or maya or illusion. So it is difficult question, and that's why when we really talk about the path, uh, we see that the higher we go, the more difficult it comes, the more subtle everything comes. But for us, it is some kind of crucial thing to solve, because we have to emphasize, the group of world disciples has to emphasize the trust. Otherwise, in humanity, we will fall. There is so much untrust everywhere. There is so much fears everywhere that even within the groups, people are breaking. And if we go to that, how we were calling the Middle Ages, Dark Ages, and it was exactly about that, or whatever situation where, for instance, government is hunting its members. What do they say? What do they do? We go astray always. The only way for us is to build more trust. Little mistakes, we all do mistakes. They are not the things, but if we start to pile our forces against anybody to destroy them, and that is what is going on in the world, as we can see, we have to stand against that and bring more and more Christ energy, Christ consciousness, Christ spirit, the
Yeah,
living Christ.
agreed completely. And I would just say, you know, from a technical point of view, let's learn how to use the fifth ray correctly, because it can create such a wall of separation against the higher vibrations. And it's all based on fear. What's going to happen to me if I trust and something lets me down? Well, you're going to be let down. All of us have been let down. And that's the story of the labors of Hercules in Gemini. The fourth step, or is it the third? He gets tied to the teacher called Bucyrus, who is giving him false information. And for a year, whatever that cycle that represents, Hercules remained bound to the altar until he figured out that Bucyrus was lying to him, or was the blind leading the blind. And then he freed himself and he bound Bucyrus to the altar. We're going to go through that, you know, and all these things that Hercules went through, we're going to go through, but we have to have the confidence in the inner God that skepticism will never find. We will emerge out the other end in an improved condition, for sure.
Okay, Michael, Mary was still continuing. I ask this because you said that humanity ejects the disciple after the fourth initiation. Humanity has difficulty distinguishing in the midst of illusion, glamour, and Maya. And then Martin, vibration, use of mind, and the heart knows or recognizes the truth. Is the heart a reliable tool or source? It is a question. Before
Yeah.
Michael, you answer, please let me share my screen.
Yeah,
You have to give me permission.
I do.
Yes, you have to.
Okay, I'll say stop share.
Okay,
Okay.
I try now. No, I cannot share my screen.
You, of course, press the green.
No. When I do that, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Well, that's crazy. Wait a second. Hold on. Let me just see what I can do very quickly, because I made you a
Sorry,
co.
Martin. I am just asking this now because I want
You
to
are a
share my screen.
co-host, Tuija. You are a co-host. Of course, you should be able to share your screen. I'll tell you what. I'm going to make you the host completely. Here you go. Now, try to share your screen.
No.
Well,
Okay,
that's very.
I will
That's peculiar.
I will reopen again. I close myself off and leave the meeting, and I try to come back. So do you remember the question from Martin?
Yes, I'm going to look at it and address it. And you, wait a second. If you leave, you're now the host. That would be very bad. Everything would stop. Hold on. Hold on, please. Don't go anywhere. Oh, now you're the host, and there's nothing
Maybe,
I can.
Michael, I have my mobile also on, so I will close that. So maybe that's the reason.
Look, if we
So
get disconnected, friends, we have tried. Okay, unfortunately, Tuija is the host, and right now, if she leaves, I fear that the whole thing may go down. So you should have been able to do that. But anyway, let me continue while you are doing what you can do. And if anything happens to us, it's been nice to be with you this morning. Okay. Okay. Yes, we are ejected at the fourth initiation, but, and humanity per se will not recognize the fourth degree initiate and will automatically reject the fourth degree initiate because of the difference between the fifth kingdom and the fourth kingdom. And then Martine, is the heart a reliable tool? Yes, very. The real heart is a reliable tool in discrimination. So finally, the heart knows these things. But we have to learn how to use the heart. In the arcane school, back long ago, Alice Bailey was friends with Madame Roerich, and for a while anyway, and she adopted some of the Agni Yoga teachings. We studied the doctrine of the I, the two of them, and then, only then, the higher doctrine of the heart. Okay, now Tia, you would like to say something, and can you press your
So Tia says, may I share something on this matter? Okay.
yeah,
Sorry.
she wants to say something. Can you press your microphone, Tia?
Yes, I unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
You bet. You bet. Okay, we're good.
I apologize to everybody. It's 2:00 here, so I'm a little bit.
Yeah, you're amazing how late you stay up for these programs. I've got to say,
But when we got to this topic, I said it caused me to have a little snicker, because the whole journey of intuition is really a journey, I think. And I remember, very specific times when some of these things seemed almost fantastical because I had no reference point for them. And I know that there were periods where I had no control over it. You would go through periods where you would just have these flashes and you would find yourself places and ask yourself why. And I was so concerned about the whole concept of glamour and illusion, and whether or not I was losing my mind, or if there was something inappropriate about what this experience was. And I actually asked my teacher, how do you know when you are not under glamour? And the response came back to me that one is not under glamour when one is not. So
okay, well, ponder on that,
So I learned, as Tuija would say, how to trust, and that it has a specific quality about it, an energy or vibration, and you just come to know that that's what it is, and then you can move with that. But as soon as I say that, I'm sure it will change and require another stretch for me, but that's where I am right now. And I thought
that's good. And it is a vibrational recognition. And basically, when the idea of inclusion and when Buddhic love is present, and the distortions that kind of make everybody else the enemy or somehow divide us from each other, we can be sure, checking the three roots of glamour, that if there is suspicion, if there is self-pity, and if there is criticism, the three roots of glamour are alive and well. And when those things are eliminated through loving inclusion, the glamour will flee. But basically, it is a vibrational recognition of a higher state that we've not been able to reach before. And another thing too, it does not emphasize the specialness of the personality. You know how people have voices that talk to them about their progress and how special they are, and this was the problem. A big glamour appeared to a couple of DK's students because there was a thought form of him that was very, very active, and it had been built up, and two of the students were very prone to that. They had a lot of sixth ray, and he says, now watch out, because the thought form of me will speak to you, and then he used this phrase, good words of mediocre cheer. I mean, those are funny words. Good words of mediocre cheer. You know, come on, you're doing well, you know, just keep going. We love you, you know, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't real. And those two people suffered a lot from what that thought form had done to their etheric body and their astral body. So DK was able to correct it and help them, but they were in danger because they took the artificial, the counterfeit, for the real thing because they just wanted to hear it. They wanted, you know, somebody up there loves me, somebody's cheering me on, somebody likes what I'm doing, you know, that kind of thing. Whereas DK was much more to the point, just a few words, and usually of a, excuse me, usually of a corrective nature. So when we start wanting to be special and we start wanting attention, we're opening the door to glamour. But for everybody, it's a little different because the glamours are different. And we just, like you say, you have to get the, when it is, it is, and when it's not, it's not. We have to get the vibration that tells us what kind of exposure we are actually having. So thanks for that little thought on getting into intuition. And by the way, you know, as we have studied, intuition is not reporting about every little personality thing. It's reporting about a much larger picture. It's not personal, DK says. So right away, oh my gosh, intuition is not personal. So maybe psychic hunches are personal, but intuition is not. It's a larger picture kind of thing. Okay. All right, Tuija, how are we doing?
I figured out, Michael, you gave my mobile me the permission, but not me who is on my computer. I am 2 times there.
So what do we do about that?
I think you have to do the other me also to be the host.
I hear you
Otherwise,
talking.
I cannot share my screen.
Well, you have too many.
maybe.
You have too many. You're coming in too many ways.
Yes, and I tried to close the mobile, but because if I close that, then the program is closing. So I didn't dare to do that. So do you see I am 2 times there?
Yes, don't do that again. I don't know how it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how it happened. Anyway, and not only that, but I don't know what to do, and we don't have our usual guides to.
Does Frederick know this?
Maybe, I don't know. Frederick is good with computers. Frederick, do you have any sense of what to do here, or is this? I'd like to make. I can't make myself the host. Tuija, you can make me the host. Try to make me the host again.
Oh gosh. I'm sorry, people. Or maybe you should just do the meditation.
Okay, whatever. Okay, well, anyway, I think we've taken up the statements so far. Good.
Yeah.
We've taken up the statements, and we've got never to have two different ways of getting onto the program. Otherwise, we're just cooked. Okay.
No, that's the problem, that you made the mobile for me, the host.
Yeah, but there were two choices, and I chose the wrong one. Yep, nothing I can do. Okay. All right, let's see. Host disabled participant screen sharing. Okay, well, I'm just going to have to do it by my head because I can't share my screen unless you enable me to share my screen. You have to enable me to share my screen.
No, then I can enable myself too, but I don't know. I can do then the same way, the meditation without images.
Okay, then you do it.
Okay, dear friends. So let us go within and have a few deep breaths. Michael, maybe you close your video.
Yeah.
So let us now strengthen the group. And we include everyone into our sacred ring. Martha, Anna, Annette, Gabriel, Catherine, Fred, Frederick, Leslie, Lynette, Marianne, Martin, Mary, Michael, Miro, Sriyantra, Stasia, Tia, Vera, Vicky, Zenaid, Cindy, and Veronica, and Tuija. And we hold everyone in our hearts and minds with love and support. The protective formula. When we are uttering the word, so then say after me, we make a sign of the cross of divinity. And we do that from forehead to the heart, from left eye to the right eye. Let us touch now forehead and say, as a soul I work in light, heart, and darkness cannot touch me. Left eye. I take my stand within the light. Right eye. I work, and from that point I never move. In your creative imagination, see the cross of divinity before everyone, or every member of the group. That protects us in this work. 3 preparatory stages. 1. Let us now focus with the dual light of matter, of etheric, physical, and mind, of mental light in the chitta. Dual light of matter and of mind. Two, meditate on soul contact. Visualize and recognize the soul light. See the scent of the soul light upon the mental plane. Three, see the fusion of these two lesser lights with the soul light, the light of reason in the mental body. The dual light of matter with the soul light. And say this affirmation after me. The light is one, and in that light shall we see light. This is the light that turns the darkness into day. The formula. Visualize the great searchlight, which is the fusion of these two lesser lights, or the matter and mind, with the soul light, which we now have been creating. Turn its light upon the astral plane. And again, we say the affirmations together. Say after me. Radiance are we and power. We stand forever with our hands stretched out. linking the heavens and the earth, the inner world of meaning and the subtle world of glamour. And Michael, can you write the name of the glamour today on the chat?
This is the, see if I can get into the chat. No, okay. Blind, violent, emotional reaction to manipulative, conspiratorial demagoguery, meaning the selfish intelligence that manipulates the emotions of the people who can only react emotionally.
And we continue. And repeat after me again. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus with the light we work and turn the darkness into day. Now we use the weapon of light. Visualize and remember the cross of divinity shining forth in front of every member of the group. We pause a moment. The searchlight is directed upon the astral plane. We now stand vertically and invoke spiritual will by using the Antakarana. Sense the living interplay between the sacrifice petals, synthesis petals, atomic plane of spiritual will, towards the monad. In your consciousness, be aware of your highest aspect of your being. And we use the beam we have generated. And again, repeat after me. With power upon its beam, the light is focused on the goal. The power upon its beam, the light is focused on the goal. The glamour to be today, to be dissipated is blind, violent emotional reaction to manipulative, conspiratorial demagoguery. And we throw now the light upon this glamour. Blind, violent, emotional reaction to manipulative, conspiratorial demagoguery. Now the words of power are uttered, and repeat after me. The power of our united light prevents the appearance of the clamor of blind, violent, emotional reaction to manipulative, conspiratorial demagoguery. Repeat after me. The power of our united light negates the quality of the clamor from affecting humanity. Negates the quality of the clamor from affecting humanity. The power of our united light destroys the life behind the glamour. Visualize the light, the searchlight of dual light with the soul light, penetrating now into the clamor of blind, violent, emotional reaction to manipulative, conspiratorial demagoguery. This vast, overshadowing vampire through which the Black Lords can work, which leads millions to confusion, so vitiating human living and all hierarchical planning against right human relations, unity and loving cooperation. We will now have 5 minutes of silence The silence produces the weakening and dissipation of the glamour of today. Five minutes of silence. We see the glamour of blind, violent emotional reaction to manipulative conspiratorial demagoguery has weakened and dissipated. We realize the intensity of purpose has deepened, while the work was seen proceeding. And now we turn away our attention from the astral plane. We refocus back upon the mental plane. And the searchlight of the soul is shut off. As well as the group searchlight. And we visualize the work has been done and it has been successful. We send from our hearts gratitude to everybody, and we thank about your patience and participation and good work. Thank you and lots of love.
And tonight, Tuija, 6 o'clock GMT.
Yes, 6 p.m. GMT, the cosmic fire work.
And since you are the host, you'll have to turn off the recording and turn off the program. Thank you, everybody. And Tuija and I will get this worked out in case we're alone without our professional guidance. We appreciate very much your presence. Thank you.